So when we bought the properties, Kody went in and sort of just put everybody's name on title, what seemed like arbitrarily.
Here's the uncomfortable truth about why no one is inviting Kody anywhere.
It's interesting that Christine and Janelle have a newfound relationship, because I think it was more antagonistic before.
Kody Brown has reached a remarkable stage of self-delusion. He has finally convinced himself that the only reason he is unwelcome is because everyone mysteriously dislikes his wife. Not him. Certainly not him. Just her. It is an impressive psychological maneuver, really.
I never said my kids weren't welcome. Janelle says my boys aren't welcome.
Declaring himself universally adored while claiming that invitations evaporate solely out of hostility toward Robyn. This tidy narrative protects the one thing he values above all else, his ego. After all, it is far less painful to imagine being collateral damage than to face the far more obvious truth that the family has moved on without him, and appears rather relieved about it. The irony is almost theatrical. While he insists Robyn is the unwanted one,
So when we bought the properties, Kody went in and sort of just put everybody's name on title, what seemed like arbitrarily.
the children have just heard him boast about his thwarted plan to manipulate property ownership to Janelle's detriment. He frames it as a joke, as if chuckling about screwing over a spouse is simply charming family banter.
That this whole you need to apologize.
They were lying.
You need to apologize
Janelle,
to
I
Robyn.
corrected that pretty
Meanwhile, his preferred loyal wife, the one with the supposed conscience, is the only one still willing to prop up this narrative. Curiously, every wife with an actual conscience seems to have left. His pattern is utterly predictable.
What have I done? What have I done?
I'm not talking about the rules that I made for Christmas time.
In a matter of weeks, he will deny the whole thing, lamenting that Janelle would ever believe he intended to harm her. According to the script, he will be shocked that anyone misreads him, despite the fact that the misreading occurs only when he contradicts himself on camera. Production has finally had enough, and the editors no longer bother cushioning his contradictions. They simply lay out the footage, untouched, and allow him to indict himself. Whether he will ever watch these episodes and notice what the rest of the world sees is doubtful. Narcissists are notoriously poor self-observers.
She grabs my leg and won't let me leave. And I'm like, Robyn, I need you to drag her off of me. And she says, she's expressing herself. You're gonna have to take 5 minutes and let her do it.
His devotion to Robyn has also taken on the tenor of emotional dependency. He portrays her as an obligatory accessory, without whom he cannot appear anywhere. This conveniently obscures the fact that he has, in fact, traveled, attended events, and handled major family moments without her presence in previous seasons. The record shows he is fully capable of acting independently. He simply prefers the narrative of persecution. Meanwhile, the work required to repair his relationships with his children sits untouched. He clings to the fantasy that the family's fractures stem from irrational jealousy. Jealousy he personally cultivated through years of favoritism and chaos management. This refusal to acknowledge his role in the dysfunction is the true engine of the estrangement. At this point, the appeal of the series lies far more with the ex-wives and the adult children than with the weary dynamics of sobbin' Robyn and her increasingly aggrieved husband. The audience has reached saturation on excuses, martyrdom, and tearful monologues about loyalty. The toxicity has become predictable, and predictability is death in entertainment. There is, however, a certain fascination in watching someone broadcast his own hypocrisy while insisting it is everyone else's fault. One could almost build a crime board flowchart of his contradictions, and every string would inevitably lead back to the same two people. What is perhaps most striking is that no one blames Robyn with the frequency or intensity that Kody does. He is the one who repeatedly positions her as the obstruction, the scapegoat, the problem he heroically sacrifices for, and underneath that gallantry lurks a future resentment, the sense that he gave up so much to love her. If she has any foresight, that should concern her, because eventually, When the narrative requires a new villain, he will look for the nearest available one, and she has been standing beside him the whole time. Never assume tears mean sincerity, especially when they appear right before a land deal. There is a rare and underappreciated skill on display: the ability to stand silently in the blast radius of someone else's emotional chaos and calmly name exactly what just happened. Jen performs this role with almost unsettling precision. While many bystanders would politely excuse themselves on the grounds of privacy or not my business,
I have our project for the day. Okay, where are we going with this?
she remains present, watching Kody's theatrics in real time and refusing to let them slide into the fog. She quietly holds the mirror up, then helps Mary recognize the contortionist routine that has just been performed at her expense.
After, it was done. It was done. And I said, Kody.
The transformation in Mary, between the immediate reaction and the delayed reflection, says everything. It is the familiar pattern of anyone who has spent years marinating in manipulation. The things that are obvious to outsiders are utterly invisible to the target. Not due to dullness, but because life inside a web of emotional games erodes perception. In that context,
Because I don't need his things. He gets to have his things. I don't need them.
Jen's blunt, steady presence becomes not only helpful, but necessary. For all the ways her personality may grate, her commitment to Mary's well-being is unmistakable. She likes Mary, genuinely, and their dynamic clearly works. More critically, she actually has Mary's back, a shocking rarity in Mary's orbit. Jen operates as a one-woman intervention team, gently or forcefully reminding her friend of the patterns she keeps tripping over. She has been, in effect, gently parenting Mary for years, offering the grounding Mary has never reliably given herself. And then there is the moment of truth. Mary begins the familiar descent into, if Kody, and Jen immediately shuts the door with a firm no. The concern on her face makes it clear she will intervene as many times as necessary to prevent yet another televised self-humiliation.
This is going to be weird to cut up.
She is, without performative flourish, Mary's ride or die. Meanwhile,
it was so emotional. He was full on breakdown.
Kody arrives armed with tears, those perfectly timed droplets that appear whenever leverage is needed. The suggestion that this display might be sincere is generous to a fault. The strategy is transparent. Soften the target, secure the land arrangements, and maintain control. Nothing in this performance reflects authenticity. It is a tactic, one that has worked far too many times. The ongoing criticism of Mary, branding her pathetic, foolish, or deserving of her predicament, betrays a profound misunderstanding of trauma and a generous helping of misogyny. She is emerging from decades of psychological erosion, an abusive dynamic wrapped in religious obligation. Her instinct to second-guess herself is the direct result of a partner who systematically dismantled her confidence. Kody could not tolerate a woman he did not fully control, so he engineered the environment necessary to keep that control. He did this not only to Mary, but to 3 other women. Robyn may have been the favored one, but favoritism is merely a different flavor of the same dysfunction. Her turn will come. Watching Mary waver evokes the same frustration experienced by anyone who has seen a loved one leave and return to an abusive partner multiple times. That does not make her weak, it makes her human. The weak one is the man who requires domination to feel secure. In this bleak landscape, Jen's presence is a small but significant corrective. A friend who observes, intervenes, and refuses to let manipulation be recast as sincerity is a luxury many never receive. The situation would be far more tolerable for the audience and, frankly, for humanity if more people had a Jen standing beside them, refusing to let the script be rewritten by the person who caused the harm. And truly, more airtime for the Mary and Jen duo would be a public service. At this point, They may very well be the only functioning partnership left.
Here's what no one involved seems willing to admit. The picture wasn't created to honor family. It was created to overwrite it. Robyn's custom-made family portrait stands as one of the more bewildering artifacts in the show's long catalog of delusion.
So Robyn has her 3 kids from her previous marriage.
Presented as a gesture of unity, the image functions less as a sentimental token and more as a quiet attempt to edit the past with the confidence of someone who assumes no one will notice the eraser marks. The biological father is wiped clean, the children repurposed, and the new patriarch inserted as if the family had always been assembled that way. It is an audacious bit of revisionism disguised as motherly devotion. The disquiet it provokes is entirely rational. Most people understand that children are already navigating enough emotional complexity without being handed a manufactured memory and instructed to accept it as truth.
Kody has this plan to kind of make this plaque.
Compelling them to adopt a new father figure at high speed, accompanied by a portrait that effectively rewrites their origin story, is not an act of bonding. It is an act of control.
Sasha, our lawyer in Montana, just let us know.
The earlier decision to obtain the biological father's relinquishment of parental rights only amplifies the unease. The portrait simply completes the tableau. The subtext is difficult to miss. The image functions as both a declaration and an aspiration. Replace the past, replace the relationships, replace the inconvenient women and children who were there first. The jealousy simmering beneath Robyn's interactions with Christine is drawn in clearer lines here than any artist could manage. She wanted the family Christine had, and in time, she obtained the legal trappings of it. What she did not acquire, unfortunately for her, were the affections, loyalties, or bonds that actually define a family. Those traveled with Christine. Meanwhile, Robyn is left with Kody, his grievances, and this deeply unfortunate portrait, a relic that becomes more disturbing with each rewatch. What once seemed merely bizarre now reads as manipulative and strangely reminiscent of a sitcom character who confuses impulsive sentiment for emotional depth, though with far less self-awareness and none of the comedic charm. In retrospect, the image is not just awkward. It is a case study in how far someone will go to construct the version of reality they find most flattering, no matter how many people must be edited out to achieve it. Here's what they don't tell you about the pandemic rules in that household. They were never about COVID. The pandemic exposed many truths, and in this particular family drama, it functioned less like a public health crisis.
You know, when we first all moved to Flagstaff 3.5 years ago, we bought this piece of property with the intention that we would all build.
And more like a spotlight. Under its glare, the public-facing narrative of unity and fairness collapsed, revealing instead a meticulous pattern of isolation, manipulation, and breathtakingly convenient rules. Repeatedly, invitations for Mary to join the household or simply spend time with the children were shut down, not by the supposed architect of the household protocols, but by the ever-dutiful enforcer who claimed merely to be following orders. The refrain was familiar. These were his rules, and any hint of leniency would clearly violate the sacred, capital-lettered commandments. The performance was so committed that it almost obscured the fact that the rules seemed to shift only in ways that ensured Mary remained outside the frame.
Because everybody was following these rules. And
the irony, of course, is that the one person who followed the protocols with monastic discipline, living alone, cutting herself off from all other social contact, was the only one denied access.
Mary has decided to come have Thanksgiving with us.
Meanwhile, gatherings for more favored occasions proceeded without hesitation. Evidently, the virus was a stickler for hierarchy. Even Christine and Janelle, hardly aligned with Mary at the time, were stunned to discover she had not been allowed to enter the home she was supposedly closest to. Their own adherence to guidelines had been casual at best, yet they were never subjected to the same emphatic barriers. Mary's full compliance was rewarded with a locked door and a lecture.
The pattern was already well established long before the pandemic. Mary had invested her loyalties in the one household she believed would welcome her, only to discover, years too late, that the welcome had always been conditional. Observers noted the remarkable precision with which isolation was disguised as fairness and concern. When Mary finally displayed a hint of frostiness in later interactions, it was difficult not to wonder whether she had begun reviewing the recent history with a more discerning eye. The contrast in her demeanor suggested a woman who had finally seen the unedited footage. Support from outside that insular dynamic, particularly from someone willing to offer truthful analysis rather than placating reassurances, seems to have given her a new vantage point. Having a confidant capable of naming manipulation plainly appears to have been more stabilizing than any scripted sisterhood. The financial decisions of the era only deepen the picture.
Well, okay, so basically then, Kody, I don't think it's going to ever work for us all to get together.
Resources that could have facilitated an equitable arrangement, such as shared housing, were instead diverted towards securing an expansive residence for the household already receiving the lion's share of attention. The notion that such choices were made in the name of family cohesion strains credulity. What makes the entire situation especially cruel is that Mary's sacrifice was made in good faith. She withdrew from every other branch of the family, hoping for a sliver of connection with the only household she believed would accept her. Had she known that the answer would always be no, she might have invested her energy elsewhere, but clarity was never part of the design. There were fleeting moments when the family patriarch appeared aware of her isolation and even sympathetic to it. Yet these brief flashes of empathy were consistently overridden by a partner who wielded anxiety, responsibility, and moral high ground with equal convenience. Blame was artfully deflected toward other wives, as though invitations to compassion were vetoed not by personal preference, but by imaginary jealousy.
I mean, because they're rules that I've imposed upon myself for good reason, but it makes me jealous.
Compliance, it turned out, was never the point. Control was. When even the most obedient participant was denied entry, it became unmistakably clear whose rules were truly in play. Here's the uncomfortable truth about Robyn's obsession with outwedding everyone around her. The latest plot twist in this endlessly unraveling family saga is almost too predictable to merit surprise.
Will you accept me as monogamous?
Kody Brown reportedly proposed monogamy to Robyn, a gesture as subtle as a foghorn and just as poetic. Naturally, speculation has already begun about the inevitable sequel wedding, because nothing reaffirms an allegedly thriving marriage like staging yet another ceremony for a couple whose romantic milestones already rival a franchise with too many installments. Of course, the timing is convenient. The shadow of Christine's expansive, joy-filled wedding still lingers, and the prospect of Robyn enduring someone else's momentary spotlight appears intolerable. Thus, another nuptial spectacle seems poised to emerge, one that promises all the grandeur of a county fair parking lot and approximately the same attendance. The guest list, if one can call it that, is expected to be sparse. Robyn has never been seen cultivating anything resembling friendship, and her social world appears limited to her children, Kody, and the noble art of shopping. Perhaps Nathan will appear, along with a stray brother or two. Beyond that, the roster quickly collapses into tumbleweeds. To disguise the glaring absence of family support, the event will almost certainly be framed as an intimate ceremony, industry code for "no one wanted to come." A romantic elopement to Hawaii would provide convenient cover, complete with a solemn promise that no pork will be served, and an ensemble for Robyn best described as Amish swimwear. The older daughters will be conscripted to babysit King Solomon and Ariella, while the couple celebrates their curated solitude. Culinary expectations should remain modest. A few sticks of celery may grace the occasion, but only sparingly, lest the offering resemble an actual meal. Recent sightings have added fuel to the speculation. Reports from the Great Smoky Mountains hinted at a vow renewal production, and nothing signals impending marital demise in the reality television universe quite like a vow renewal. It is the ritualistic equivalent of patching a sinking boat with gift wrap. Highly decorative, utterly ineffective,
and performed with great ceremony by couples desperate to prove what no one else believes.
Despite assurances from Kody that marital bliss now permeates their lives.
Could you have your ID, right?
All I need is a driver's license, right?
This celebration would mark Robyn's third wedding with him, legal paperwork included. The legal marriage, dismissed at the time as a mere formality, still required vows and an officiant, making it a wedding in every meaningful sense.
Because when I got married, there was one ceremony. The ecclesiastical authority that married us.
The only credit due is Kody's refusal to authorize the lavish party Robyn envisioned for that occasion, a rare moment of restraint in an otherwise unrestrained personal history. Most tellingly, the couple was recently observed commemorating their anniversary, not the unimportant legal date Kody once dismissed, but precisely that date. Even their nostalgia can't keep its story straight. In the end, the only surprise left is how many ceremonies one marriage can withstand before the symbolism collapses under its own weight. If another wedding is indeed on the horizon, it promises spectacle without substance, celebration without participants, and vows renewed not out of devotion, but out of sheer narrative necessity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Even with handcrafted edits and a full-scale PR push, Robyn and Kody are still the most disliked duo on the show.
Sorry, okay, sorry, I'm gonna be nice.
A curious trend has emerged. A wave of declarations insisting that Robyn Brown is merely misunderstood, unfairly maligned, and, most astonishing of all, so nice. Apparently, after 19 seasons of televised behavior, viewers are expected to abandon their own eyes and ears in favor of this newly scripted narrative. The rebranding effort is so conspicuous, it might as well come with a disclaimer, paid for by the Kody and Robyn Image Rehabilitation Committee. The campaign is unmistakable.
I should just be the devil I think I am now.
A string of suspiciously synchronized voices now claims the public has judged Robyn too harshly, as though her on-screen tears, machinations, and steady ascent to the family's top position were mere hallucinations. The strategy resembles propaganda. Regional, domestic, and unintentionally comedic in its transparency. Evidence of behind-the-scenes management is hardly theoretical. The family's own book confirms that Robyn requested more flattering editing as early as the first season transition, and yet, despite years of favorable angles, selective confessionals, and editorial cushioning, she and Kody remain almost universally unpopular. When even one's preferred edits cannot manufacture likability, the problem is no longer the edit. The digital landscape reflects the same effort. A cluster of brand new accounts, all curiously active in only one corner of the internet, now rushes to denounce Christine and Janelle while championing Robyn and Kody in identical phrasing, complete with the frantic use of all caps. Confront them, and the comments vanish on cue. It is a performance so clumsy that one almost expects a credit sequence. Additional online advocacy by family representatives. What ultimately undermines the attempted sainthood narrative is not commentary from longtime viewers. It is the on-screen record.
Okay, so my water just broke. Okay, and so, yeah, hurry.
The stalled drive to the hospital during Christine's labor. The covert bridal shop excursion meant to upstage the original three wives. And the ongoing financial imbalances are all part of the public record. No amount of spin can retroactively repaint them as acts of benevolence. As for Kody Brown,
And since then, Robyn has bought a house.
the image makeover faces even steeper odds. Decades of inflammatory remarks, the evident alienation of multiple children, and an ever-deteriorating public persona present challenges for even the most seasoned crisis management professional. One cannot simply apply polish to structural collapse. If a PR team has indeed been enlisted, its task is formidable. Reshape a narrative that the audience has already watched unfold in high definition for nearly 2 decades. The damage was self-inflicted, prolonged, and in many ways, ongoing. Viewers are unlikely to embrace a redemption arc when the protagonists refuse to abandon the very behaviors that make redemption necessary. In short, the rebrand is not failing because critics are harsh. It is failing because the material is unchanged. Here's the uncomfortable truth about the Meri and Kody saga. The downfall didn't start with catfishing. It started the moment Robyn walked in and rewrote the family power structure. For years, the public narrative insisted that Kody Brown once harbored genuine affection for Meri, the original spouse and the foundational pillar of his polygamous empire.
I didn't know that I loved her because of her adventure level.
Are you realizing that now?
Yeah, it's kind of...
The early seasons of the family saga even appeared to support this mythology. Kody played the part of a caring husband. Meri clung to the hope that familiarity would eventually triumph over dysfunction, and the whole arrangement masqueraded as functional. It was charming, in the way that an approaching train wreck can be briefly charming before the debris settles. Then came Robyn, polygamy's most ambitious disruptor, who entered the marital ecosystem with the precision of a well-timed corporate takeover. Her strategy was flawless. Wedge herself squarely between husband and first wife, massage Kody's insecurities into grievances, and position herself as the sole authority on who was allowed near the patriarch during a pandemic. The result was predictable. Where Kody once made overtures toward including Meri, particularly during COVID isolation, Robyn ensured those gestures died quietly in committee.
And that wasn't from the catfishing. It was just the catfish just woke me up out of the...
Some enthusiasts of the saga have long speculated that Robyn's influence extended even further, framing her as the mastermind behind the infamous catfishing scandal, a Machiavellian maneuver allegedly designed to sever whatever vestigial sympathy Kody still held for Meri. Whether or not that theory holds water, the power dynamic shifted decisively. Robyn secured her position as the favored spouse, and Meri found herself reduced from wife to obligation. Yet, even in the midst of this unraveling, the myth persisted that Kody secretly loved Meri, but was led astray. The record, however, suggests a different story.
So right around the time that Robyn came into the family, and I cannot remember,
Kody himself repeatedly declared their marriage a mistake, criticized Meri's personality, lamented her supposed anger issues, and went so far as to melt down their wedding ring, a gesture generally reserved for dramatic symbolism in bad theater. His contempt was not subtle. It was practically a subplot.
So thank you. Thank you for coming. It was a blessing. Thank you for leaving.
So the tears Kody shed at the end were hardly a revelation of lost love. They were the sentimental closing ceremony for an empire collapsing under its own contradictions. The first wife's exit symbolized the final dissolution of the grand polygamous experiment, and crying about the end of an era requires far less courage than facing the wife still standing in the doorway. Meri's endurance, decades of rejection, manipulation, and hollow promises, was less evidence of romantic devotion than a case study in loyalty weaponized against oneself. Religious belief played its part, but so did the slow drip cruelty of being told that improvement might restore what never truly existed.
A full thing there too.
Meri came to me saying, we need to just do this divorce on paper.
Kody kept her in orbit with just enough mixed signals to maintain the illusion of possibility. Meanwhile, the patriarch's ambitions were increasingly transparent. The supposed spiritual calling looked more like a self-styled harem fantasy, complete with the expectation that multiple women and a legion of children would serve as proof of masculine worth. When the fantasy faltered, the responsibility evaporated. Abandoning 3 wives and the majority of his children offered a simpler path than supporting the family structure he once championed. As for Meri, her downfall was not missing the signals, but refusing to believe them. Loyalty became obsession, and obsession masqueraded as love. No self-sufficient woman with modern options would willingly endure the humiliation, isolation, and financial manipulation she withstood. The boundary between devotion and self-erasure was crossed long ago. In the end, the conspiracy theories about Robyn's machinations may add color, but they are almost unnecessary. Kody Brown required no external force to abandon those who built his life. The only real mystery is how long his partners mistook neglect for spiritual leadership, and how long some viewers continue to do the same.